Hello, everyone, and welcome to Rich Sports Talk. And the New York Jets, it feels like, in a weird way, the New York Jets deserve this tonight. And it's unfortunate because the fan base doesn't deserve this. The fan base doesn't deserve another primetime embarrassment. This fan base doesn't deserve to be ridiculed on prime time, be roasted yet again. But once again, here we are, and we have a lot to talk about, including the owner's comments from last weekend. We have the coaching staff, we had the front office, but this game perfectly illustrated the Jets season in a nutshell because one team made a bunch of excuses all season. One team made excuses why they couldn't compete. And another team, despite all the issues that they had, said, we are going to try and find a way. And you know what the difference is? The team that tried to find a way just clinched a playoff berth tonight. The team that's been making the excuses will miss the playoffs for the 13th consecutive season and will once again have a double-digit loss season. There is a lot to get into, and I think we have to look at all of the big three tonight when it comes to this organization. But I will start off with the most important one, which is Woody Johnson. Woody Johnson made a declaration last week. This staff will be back. They deserve an opportunity to have their quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. I wonder if you were to ask him tonight, honestly, if he wishes he didn't say that. Because, yes, the Jets beat the Commanders on Sunday, but they almost had an unbelievable collapse and were bailed out by Zerline. Tonight, in front of the nation, in prime time, against a former quarterback, a quarterback that his staff said, we don't need him. We're absolutely fleeced. And once again, for every Jet fan that is screaming that Robert Saleh deserves to be fired, that Joe Douglas deserves to be fired, it gets harder and harder every week to basically look you in the eyes on this program and say, oh, you're wrong. I do think it is the lesser of evils. I do think if you were to fire Douglas and fire Saleh, it would be an even bigger mess. But it is not a pretty picture for the New York Jets. And unfortunately, I don't see it getting much better. And the big question is, can Aaron Rodgers bail out this franchise? Because that is what this team is basically relying on. Because all season, we have been told, and we have been manipulated, because I've been saying this for weeks. I started saying this around the trade deadline, and I will steadfast to it. It feels like, and they can tell you till they're blue in the face, it feels like this New York Jet team made a decision on that September 11th night that this season was going to be a wash, that they weren't going to invest anything into the season. And despite having a great roster, and despite having a great defense, and despite having a fan base that has been starved for the playoffs for over a decade, this organization made the decision that they were just going to punt for 2024. And that is an egregious slap in the face to this great fan base, because for every excuse the New York Jets have thrown us as a fan base, for everything that they have argued that you can't win without your starting franchise quarterback, you can't win with all these injuries on the offensive line, you can't win without playmakers, you can't win, it was shoved in their face tonight. Cleveland's had more injuries. Cleveland is the spitting image of the Jets. They lost their franchise quarterback. They're down to their fourth quarterback. Tonight, they didn't have their best weapon, Amari Cooper. Then, midway through the second quarter, they didn't have their second best receiver, Elijah Moore. But yet, the Jets somehow, and this great defense, couldn't figure out, Cleveland doesn't have their best receivers. maybe we should guard their tight ends. But they didn't do that. And when they made the adjustments, I mean, they were already down 34 points at that point. So what was the point? This team is infuriating to watch, and this coaching staff, because again, I do like certain things about all of these guys. There's things I like about Joe Douglas. There are things I like about Robert Saleh. But when Woody Johnson said they were coming back, I kept saying to myself, you should have waited to the end of the year. I know that the idea probably was to not divide this locker room and to have everyone on board, but man, it is hard to stomach as a fan base when you see them almost blow it to the Commanders. And I do think this team would be better there than Rodgers, but then seeing tonight where again in front of the nation, this team just gets kicked in the cojones. The last two primetime games against the Dolphins, embarrassed. Against the Browns tonight, embarrassed. It's not bad enough that the Jets lose these games. They have to be embarrassed and mocked and laughed at and ridiculed. And as a fan base, we are sick and freaking tired of it. And we are watching the Cleveland Browns, who lost their quarterback, who they paid a ton of money, lost basically almost their entire offensive line, was without playmakers. But you know what they did? They didn't do what the Jets did. They made adjustments. They executed. For all this talk about the Jets not having talent, well, you know what they also don't have? They don't have discipline. The New York Jets, again, have over 100 yards of penalties. This New York Jet team, which is supposed to be led by a defensive coach, and defensive coaches are all about the details and not making the stupid mistakes to shoot yourself in the foot. And yet every time you look up, false start, illegal procedure. Every time the Jets get some breath of life, they just screw it up with penalties. And it was infuriating because, again, this offense with Nathaniel Hackett, I'm not saying Nathaniel Hackett's great. I don't think he's a good offensive coordinator, but this was one of his better games. I thought he had a decent game plan for most of this game. I thought Trevor Siemian was fine. If you were to tell me the Jets were going to score 20 points against the Browns, you know what? They have a shot to win this game with their defense. But this defense, which I keep saying is a great defense, but I will not use the term championship defense because they make way too many mistakes. They make way too many boneheaded plays. And again, tonight, you saw it, that this team just continues to shoot itself in the foot. That play where Joe Flacco was able to escape the pocket and throw it down the field and no one could tackle a tight end for 30 yards. It's like last year against the Lions, the fourth down play where we can't even have a linebacker within sniffing distance of him. Yeah, it's great. They held the 30 yards in the second half. Who cares? At that point, the game was over. This defense didn't show up. But you know what? I can't get on too much because they have bailed this team out time and time and time again. What I can blame is this coaching staff and front office. And they all should be embarrassed. And you know what? I know it's not customary, but Joe Douglas needs to talk to this fan base because you owe this fan base an explanation how you look around this league. And you know what? Going into the season, Zach Wilson as your backup, I don't love that plan, but you know what? You had an idea that Zach was going to sit behind Aaron for the season, and basically Aaron was going to play a lot of games. You know what? I can't completely fault that. What I can fault you is the following. When he goes down week 1, the phone lines from Florham Park should have been on fire to every agent of a quarterback saying, are you interested? And what's even more damning for this front office is you've had quarterbacks come out and say, we called the Jets. Because you know what? These quarterbacks aren't stupid. They know there's only so many opportunities in the NFL. And you know what they looked at? They looked at a team and said, hey, they have a pretty good running back. They have a pretty good young receiver. I could maybe do something. Carson Wentz, I want to play for you, Joe Douglas, or at least be your backup. No, We're good. We're fine. We don't need you. We're good with Zach Wilson, Trevor Siemian, and Zach Boyle. Joe Flacco, who's been a good backup for the Jets the last 2 years, has won them games as a backup quarterback. He calls the Jets and says, hey, do you need my help? He's someone that people in that locker room respect. It's a different system, but he's a veteran. And I understand the mobility is an issue. But is Trevor Siemian that great of an athlete? Is Tim Boyle that great of an athlete? But no, Joe, we're fine. Stay on the couch. We're good. Meanwhile, this team also was abysmal handling this offensive line. When people started going down, what was the thing of the trade deadline? Every Jet fan was screaming, try to get someone for this offensive line or playmaker. You know what the Jets paraded to us as a fan base? We signed Roger Saffold. Go check your fridges and your milk cartons because I think there's a missing picture of him because we have not even seen Roger Saffold on this roster. And even better was what came out this week with Dwayne Brown. And I have nothing but respect for Dwayne Brown. He is a great pro. He's had an unbelievable career. But the way the Jets handle that, where they took him off the IR and pretty much now admitted we didn't think he would play this year. So you're telling us you knew he couldn't play and you didn't try to go out and find anyone to take that roster spot. And you know what? I'll also get on the coaching staff for this. Robert Saleh talks about accountability. Robert Saleh talks about holding people accountable. You held Zach accountable. Some people would say too long, but you know what? You benched Zach last year when he messed up with the media. You benched Zach this year because he wasn't getting the job done. How about this, Robert Saleh? Mekhi Becton should be on the bench. That was an embarrassment tonight. Mekhi Becton was an absolute embarrassment. Mekhi Becton, I don't know if this is possible. I don't know if this has ever happened in the league. But somehow, Mekhi Becton not only leads tackles in sacks allowed, but in penalties. Both. He killed this team time and time again. Myles Garrett took his freaking lunch money tonight. Then, because he was taking his lunch money so much, he's jumping off sides. He can't. He's trying to get a jump start. I was saying and screaming and putting on Twitter, put Carter Warren in there. Let that kid have an opportunity. Give him a shot because Mekhi Becton is killing you out there. And you talk about accountability. And you know what? Zach Wilson, I know, is not everyone's cup of tea. I know Zach Wilson's never going to play for the Jets again. But you know what? Mekhi Becton should be held accountable. Mekhi Becton is one of the reasons you let go of George Fant. And you know what? George Fant looks like a pretty damn good tackle for the Texans. He's the reason you let Robert Moses go because we have to see what Mekhi can do. Now, you know, look, Robert Moses is laughing as a starting right tackle and a good one for the Baltimore Ravens, who could potentially be the number 1 seed in the playoffs. But instead of all that, you said, no, we have to get with Mekhi Becton. And you know what? We've had this saying. I've heard it from Jake Asman. He coined that term, you know, the Zach Wilson truthers. Where are all the Mekhi Becton truthers? Because I got a lot of flack on this channel when I kept saying, you know, I don't love Mekhi Becton. I don't trust Mekhi Becton. I don't believe in Mekhi Becton. And I remember, oh, Nolan, how could you be so mean to Mekhi Becton? How could you judge him like that? And I would say, well, the simple fact that he's missed more games out of the potential he could have played. And, oh, yeah, his rookie season, which, again, I understand he had those great pancake blocks in the running game, and that's good to look at. It's fun on Twitter, but you do know in 14 games, he allowed 11 pressures in his rookie year, which was the highest in the league. And people were criticizing the Jets. Why are the Jets moving Mekhi Becton to right tackle? He should be the left tackle. Maybe because the Jets staff knew and has seen this in practice. And unfortunately, he got beat tonight. And I was getting annoyed because, again, I know that there are injuries everywhere. I know that this offensive line is struggling. But you know what? Give Max Mitchell shot at right tackle and Carr at left. Because you know what? They're not. They're not the most penalized offensive linemen in the league. They're not the most guys that have given up the most sacks in the league. That honor belongs to Mekhi Becton. The only silver linings I can take from tonight, and they are very, very, very little, is, well, I guess we're seeing some progress from this offense because they actually could score some points tonight. They finally realized, give the ball to Brees. Xavier Gibson had some pop with some plays, and Garrett Wilson was spectacular as always. Jermaine Johnson was great on defense. Outside of that, I don't know what was great about this game. I guess that it was shorter than the Commanders game is the silver lining, but this game was frustrating. And Joe Douglas in this front office looks embarrassed after this game because they have told us and the NFL, almost stuck their noses up, saying, we're fine. We don't need a quarterback. Well, the last couple of weeks, you've been dying at this position. This season has died because of the quarterback position. And Joe Flacco, the guy you said wasn't good enough for your team, just torched you for nearly 300 yards in the first half. The guy Jacoby Brissett, who you could have traded a day 3 pick for at the trade deadline, was roasting your defense the week before. You look around this league, I understand that there's no such thing as a great backup and that there were limited options. But you know what you could have at least sold this fan base? You tried. And that's what I kept saying all season. This team did not try to get better at the quarterback position. They didn't do anything. And they had opportunity after opportunity to do that. And they stood up there and said, we are good. You don't know what you're talking about. And for everyone that's questioning Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh, you have every right to after this one. And look, I guess it's getting a little testy in the press room between Rich Cimini and Robert Saleh. Saleh not really happy, loving the questions from Richard Cimini, saying, like, I don't know why you don't seem more pissed off. And he's like, well, do you want me to throw the podium to the floor? Well, Robert, like, when this is your expression on the sideline for 95% of the game, yeah, I think we would like to see a little emotion. Yeah, we would like to see a little pissed. Yeah, we would like to see a little bit more accountability. I guess the silver lining is the Jets jumped up to the 8th spot in the draft pick. But man, the biggest thing is you want confidence in this coaching staff. And I said after the Commanders game, the biggest thing you want right now is you need this team to show you that you have confidence, that you have a plan, that you have something, some momentum going into it next year. And it has reached a screeching halt. And look, I like Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers will make this a better team. But will free agents believe that much in Aaron Rodgers when they look at this staff and how this front office handled this season? I don't know. Rich, I think we've been bamboozled by this organization. I think we have. Absolutely. It won't snowball. Yeah, Robert Saleh, it won't snowball. I mean, it's not even a snowball. It's a snow freaking boulder. It's like that Indiana Jones chase scene in the, what is it? The first, I forget the name of the movie. Okay, Melvin, at least I forgot. Garrett Wilson, 1,000-yard receiver. Unbelievable. And when you think about the freaking quarterbacks he has had to deal with, 7 different quarterbacks in his young career. And this year, the garbage that's been thrown at him, he's still getting 1,000 yards. That kid's special. I don't know how many of these players can feel good about running it back with this coaching staff, even with Rodgers coming back. Like, that's the thing. Like, this is the thing. And look, CJ Mosley was cooked. I don't get what that's the thing too. Mosley is a good linebacker, but I think he gets way too much props. I was just like screaming at my TV. Can we put Quincy on? Because we at least know Quincy can run. I love how Sal just stands there all game. It's real inspiring. Yeah, he just stares blankly into the space and into the ether. Sal has to go. He looks over, say he's defeated. Look, it doesn't look good for this coaching staff. Look, this coaching staff, there needs to be someone needs to be held accountable. And look, I get why people are asking, why don't you seem angry? It's because, and I get Rasali, he's trying to keep reserved, he's trying to keep it an even keel, but look, Jet fans are pissed. They've missed the playoffs 13 years ago, and they're seeing around the league Jake Browning winning games with the Bengals, the Vikings on their third or fourth quarterback. They're in a position to get to the playoffs. They're seeing this Brown team with just as many injuries, with more injuries to playmakers, clinching a playoff berth tonight. Like, it's like every other team is trying to find a solution for the Jets. Like, what do you want us to do? We have injuries. Well, guess what? Every other team in the league has injuries. It's the NFL. It's figured out league. Defense is fine. People expect too much. All defense have bad days. Look, I agree, but there's way too many 3rd and 15s. And this is another thing, Justin Jets. I agree with the most part, but there's two things I think they're damning about this defensive performance. Number one, this defense, they've been around Joe Flacco for 2 years. They know what he does well and doesn't do well. And the other thing, too, is they're out their two best receivers. This wasn't like you were playing the Chiefs or something. You were playing a team that basically, didn't have their top receivers and they couldn't cover a tight end. And this is the thing that pisses me off, too. And you saw it last week. When one guy's roasting you, and I know they love the zone defense, but you have Sauce Gardner. Can you tell me why when David Njoku is absolutely toasting this defense worse than the toaster in the Pop-Tart Bowl today, he can't say, hey, Sauce, go take David Njoku out of this freaking game for us because he's the only guy that's killing us, like last week with Jalen Waddle. But instead, Becton, yeah, that big bus t-shirt. Yeah, you're right, Makai. You called it. We need 300. That version playing now is gross. Dude, he was terrible at 3. It didn't matter the weight. He was bad, whatever weight he was. He answered at the end of the season, RJF, but look, he needs to answer him soon. I'm sorry. Like, he needs to. Every draft pick and every free. I agree with this. It's not going to be that, but I think half the picks in the draft should be offensive linemen. They have to be. We have 2 offensive players, and all others are basically unrosterable. I would disagree with that. If we're going through Conklin's a starting tight end in this league. Joe Tippmann is a starting one. Look, Laken Tomlinson's not great. I do think he'd be a starter at least on a couple teams. Not a lot, but a couple. Probably 4 or 5, but you're right. I think a couple of those guys are unrosterables. We need 2 receivers, at least a running back. The offensive line is the biggest thing, man. Tight end would be nice, but look, it's the least of their worries. They need to get the offensive line. It doesn't matter who your tight ends are if you can't block. We need a total rebuild. Well, they're not going to do that. They're going with Aaron Rodgers next year. I can see where you're going from, and a lot of fans want the rebuild, but look, they're going this coaching staff. They're going full rebuild. These guys wouldn't have their job, but they're going to run it back next year. I'm convinced that the Jets are cursed. It's why. I mean, it's hard to argue, Melvin. It's hard. I mean, I'm running out of things to say, like, and try to rationalize. Like, the problem is when you try to bring thoughts and reason in the conversation, sometimes the Jets, it just feels like thought and reason goes out the window. Like, you can't explain it. You can't justify it. It just seems to happen. Of the passion, I'm right here with you, Rich. It's infuriating. What I hate about Beck is he doesn't seem to. I don't think that's it. I just don't think he's good. Look, I don't care about, like, again, the league's changed. I know a lot of people yearn for the days of NFL guys hating each other and that rivalry, but look, it's not the attitude for me. I just don't think he's that good. Like, look, I get why Becton's like the guy in Madden. Like, if you're designing a dream offensive lineman and you put him into the computer, that's what he would punch out as. Like, that's what he would look at. Like, but look, he's just never had great feet. Even this rookie year, I said I was concerned. He gave up a lot of pressures. He wasn't a great left tackle. And look, it's also damning too on Joe Douglas, because for as great as some of his hits have been, he's had some big whiffs. I mean, Tristan Wirfs, I know he wasn't a left tackle, but He's a Pro Bowl caliber right tackle on the board for the Jets. They passed him up. They went with Mekhi Becton, and it has been a disaster. Happy Elijah Moore is okay after that head injury. Good thing we trade him. He really hurt the culture of this organization. Yeah, I err on the side of I think it was a good thing to trade Moore. I don't think Moore would have done well. And look, it just feels like the bridges were burned with the Jets. And the problem is, it's a weird thing because on the one hand, you look at his talent, he would definitely be helpful. He'd definitely be an improvement over on this roster. I think the Jets really mishandle him, but it's clear that for whatever reason, he did not get along with this coaching staff. He did not get along with it. And I do think part of it maybe was he had that good rookie year. I think he felt he was a number one option. The Jets felt, look, he's more of a number 2 or 3, especially with Garrett Wilson. And look, when he requested that trade, especially during a 3-game winning streak, I think that really irked a lot of the coaches. And look, I think he's a bit of a head case. I think even in Cleveland, he's had some head case issues this year. He's a talented kid. I'm glad he's okay. But it's, again, another player where the Jets draft him 34th for a reason. That's a player that should be on your team right now. The 34th pick of the draft should be making a big contribution on our team, and he's right now on another team. I think it would kill. Look, I don't think this is good for morale, man. The big thing is I want them to beat the Patriots at this point. I just want them to beat the Patriots and that stupid streak. Although I'm trying to think with Tankathon if the Jets, because I'm trying to think what the Patriots are playing this weekend, because Patriots have 4 wins. There's a chance the Jets, I guess, technically could go in that game and have the same record as the Patriots. But again, I don't want to finish in last place either. Right now, the Jets move to 8th. You have Tennessee with 5 wins, Chargers and Giants. I think your Jets, you want to get in the top 6. So hoping that you can get a couple wins out of those teams in front of them, but we will see what happens. And look, I think you just got to play hard. Sal's no coach, but coach what was out there. But look, drones, I think a lot of this goes on, Joe, but the penalties, man, like everyone, this was an excuse I heard today. Well, the Jets don't have the talent to compete, and they're making all these dumb penalties. Well, you know what? Cleveland has just as many injuries. Did they have over 100 yards of penalties? They didn't know. They didn't make stupid mistakes. That's the thing that annoys me. And like it's been an argument. Well, you can't blame all these offensive line penalties and all these penalties on these guys because they don't have the talent. They're not good. And it's the groceries. And I do believe that's part of it. But I look over on the Browns and it's like, oh, they're not making all these dumb penalties. It's like every game the Jets they're the most penalized team in the NFL. It's horrendous. So the GM have learned to accept losing. They are losers. Losing is just normal to them. They aren't winners. Losing is like that's the thing. It needs to be unacceptable, and it's so frustrating. Like you care more on the side, maybe he wouldn't get these questions. I get it, and look, I think what he's trying to do is be the CEO on the sideline. But the reason the Jets hired and reason we were excited was he was an energetic coach. We were thinking we were getting someone that wasn't a Rex Ryan, but more of a Rex Ryan-esque type, or someone that was passionate and jumping around the sidelines, and instead we just get basically a meme almost. Yeah, the help part I agree with. They should have been chipping. They should have had a block back in the block. Again, I think the thing that hurt Melvin is Ruckert's loss, I think, was really felt tonight because Ruckert's this team's best blocking tight end. With his concussion, you could clearly see that this Conklin's not a great blocker. The tight ends outside of Uzama's not a good blocker. Ruckert's the best blocking tight end. If he was healthy, he would have been over there, but he wasn't. And unfortunately, I don't think they have a good chipping back in the backfield. I would have tried to run plays away from Garrett, but look, it was just a thing where I would have moved him to the right side because it got to the point where it's like, dude, he's like so worried about Garrett. He's false starting and trying to get a head start. Like it was horrendous. I've never seen that. It was so freaking bad, man. It was, and he was getting killed. And it wasn't just getting killed. He was getting abused, and it was becoming a psychological game. I would seriously consider trading AVT for the right price in the offseason. To me, look, they're not trading AVT. A couple of reasons. Number one, I don't think you're not going to get full price from him because he's coming off 2 seasons where he's missed half the season. That's number one. Number two, he's your best offensive lineman with healthy. And number three, the Jets need good offensive linemen. And I get the injury worries, and I understand that. But the thing is, they need to take a chance on AVT and hope he can get healthy and stay healthy next year, because they don't have good options. I mean, really, they have Tittman and probably Lakin Thompson. I know every Jet fan screaming for Thompson to get cut for cap casualty, but here's the problem. If you cut Tomlinson, who's replacing him? Who's replacing him? Like, maybe could you get Connor McGovern to play guard? I don't love that idea, but right now you're looking to place 2 tackles. Okay, now you're going to replace 2 tackles, a guard, and then find a good swing guard? Good luck. Riz, A-minus, what do you want to replace? Look, the O-line coach needs to go. Passing game core, I would say Hackett's going to be involved in this offense. I would take away play calling from next year. But look, I think the offensive line coach needs to go, because, again, it's alignment, it's assignments, it's communication. I mean, do you mean right now, Melvin? I would say the bar. I mean, I think our bar is still open. I know it's 12:30, but I think that'd be a good choice right now for Jet fans. Therapy's another good choice. But in terms of I think you mean the team, though. Yeah, I can. I mean, maybe that's what they need to do is Vince Papali like tryouts for tackle. But look, there's one game left. Here's my thought with this next game. Play the players that might have a shot to make a contribution here next year. If I'm the Jets, here's what I would do the final game of the season. I'm not playing Mekhi Becton. I'm playing Carter Warren as my left tackle. I think he's shown enough at right that I'm like, okay, I think he can play. Put him at left tackle. Let's see how he does. Let's see how he handles a Belichick defense. Put Max Mitchell at right tackle. See if there's anything there. And if you need to, if it goes bad, you put Becton in. But Becton's not coming back. I would try to play Newman at right guard. I thought he's someone that maybe could be a backup. On this defense, I would play Jermaine Johnson. I'd start Will McDonald. I'd let Bryce Huff play a lot. But look, I try to give Will McDonald as many opportunities to play so he's ready to go right for next year. In some regards, I'd give Sherwood some reps over CJ Mosley. And I'd start Ashton Davis the full game. Because I think Ashton Davis, when he's on the field, good things have happened. And I do think him, Adams, and if you can get another safety, maybe Chuck Clark, I think it's not a bad safety rotation next year. I don't think Jordan Whitehead's going to be back. I think Jordan Whitehead's going to get paid by someone. And look, I think he's a good safety, but the price he's going to get, I don't think he's going to be worth that money. I think he's had a good comeback here, but look, I think what he's going to make in free agency. And again, if you're new to the channel, give us a like, give us a subscribe, give us a bash, or join us after. Make sure to comment on this video afterward. We're trying to get as many Jet fans to this community as possible, responding after every Jet game. And of course, during the offseason, we do a bunch of mock drafts. And the draft content's comment, guys, I promise you. I just wait till the season's over. Because again, I wait till draft picks are locked in to even start the conversation. Once bowl season's kind of worn down, we get a better idea what prospects are coming out to really go into that. So again, I will have that coming, promise, so don't miss that. Yeah, I think with the Jets, Will McDonald takes that jump like Jermaine Johnson. And like I said, outside Jermaine, Quinnen and Jermaine tonight, like that rest of that defense did not have a good night. That defense, DJ Reed did not have a good night. I think that he has something nagging him right now. He seems a little off. He's still been good, but Breece Hall tweeted. I got to see what Breece Hall tweeted because I know he's been liking a lot of tweets lately. So let's see what Breece just tweeted. Breece Hall has a get your laughs out now. Ain't going to be like this forever, 100%. I'll just tell everyone to get their laughs out now because it's not going to be like that for the near future. We're going to get a lot better, so I'm excited to see what we do. Look, I give Breece a lot of credit. I love the optimism. I think he's a leader. I think you have leaders in him, Garrett, and Sauce. Look, I think it's going to get better next year because, look, it can't get worse. You're not going to get worse quarterback play than they got this year with Aaron Rodgers. They're going to have a top 10 pick, likely, maybe even higher, maybe closer to 5. But look, this is a big thing. But the problem is I don't think Jet fans have a lot of trust. I mean, Joe Douglas said he was going to build the offensive lines. He's had 5 years. And the one thing I worry about, and I see Melvin's question. I'll get to Melvin in a second. Hey, guys, if you have any questions in the comments, we're going to wrap it up soon. So make sure you get your comments and questions in before we get out of here tonight. I want to make sure I get to everyone. And I will get to your question about the draft because I'm a draft nerd. But I would just say the one thing that concerns me the most about Joe is I do think Joe has an eye for spotting talent. I do think Joe has shown he can find players. The two biggest concerns I have with Joe is he has struggled in the mid rounds to find those diamonds in the rough. He's found a few, but it's very rare. And the biggest thing is the offensive line. The reason the Jets hired him was the offensive line. We were imagining they were going to build a line like they did in Philly, and that this was his MO. And judging by his picks, I mean, AVT's got is talented, Tippmann's talented, but Mekhi Becton's a huge whiff, especially at left tackle. That is a massive whiff. You look at Max Mitchell, hasn't been as good as we thought here in year 2. And I think what's more damning is the free agency, where I'll go through each individual case. And again, guys, if I'm boring you, let me know in the comments and I'll move on to the draft stuff. But the way they've handled the line has always intrigued me, and it does leave something to be desired. And I'll go let me start from left to right. On the left side, you have Dwayne Brown. They came in this season with him at 38, basically telling us he was going to be the starting left tackle. And knowing he was injured coming into this season, and they even admitted they rushed to get him back, which is damning. And the other thing, too, is Dwayne Brown, they make it sound like Dwayne Brown's been here for 10 years. Dwayne Brown was basically brought in last year because of the Mekhi injury. And almost begrudgingly, it felt like. And he did a great job, and he filled in. Look, he did an admirable job filling in. But that's what he was. He was a fill-in, not the main starter. Then you go to left guard, Laken Tomlinson. The one thing you can say good about Laken is he started pretty much every game. Problem is he hasn't been great. He's been the big free agent signing. The Jets paid him and propped him up to be a Pro Bowl type guard, and he's been below average. Timmons been good center. I think Connor McGovern's been a good signing. Like, the center position has been the one position I do think consistently they've done a good job at. Right guard, AVT, I think is talented, but you worry about the durability. Schweitzer, I thought was a good pick this offseason, but got hurt. But then you go to the right tackle position. This team came in this season with Mekhi Becton, the right tackle, who hadn't played even a full combined season when you look at the games he's played. Came in with Max Mitchell, came in with Carter Warren. And what's more damning to me is you had two guys already on this team. You had George Fant, who I do think fans underappreciate, but was a good tackle. And really the last year he was here, he was scripted because the team kept flipping him all the time. And he couldn't get settled. But you look right now, he's a good tackle. And the ironic thing is, he'd be someone I tried being in free agency, but I'm not sure if he wants to come here because of the bridges that have been burned here. You had him in the building, and you let him go. Then you had Morgan Moses, who's a really good right tackle. You got him for nothing. Played unbelievable. But because you had to justify Mekhi, you let him go. And he's been a great starter for the Ravens for 2 years. So you've had two guys on this team who you look at and go, if I was to tell you right now, Fant was the left tackle and Morgan Moses was the right tackle, would you say this is a great offensive line? No. But would you say it's serviceable? Absolutely. And look, he's done a good job, Melvin, at finding the skill possession players and the undrafted. I'll give you that. But the biggest issue was the offensive line. That was his biggest thing, was the trenches. He's done a great job with the defensive side. But the offensive side has left a lot to be desired. It's people like you, Rich, that makes being a Jet fan a little less painful. Thank you. I appreciate I can be your Novocaine RGF Meta for the time being. And again, this is free therapy for Melvin and all of you guys. So again, if you know any Jet fans too, we want to get as many people in this community. Let us know about our channel. Share this on Twitter. Share this on X and Facebook. Give us a like. Give us a subscribe. Let all your Jet fans know. Don't know how this regime is able to come back and almost set us back. We got to think about, look, Mosley had a bad game, but he's been good this season. This team loves him on defense. I don't think they'll fully cut him. I think they'll try to get 1 year off him. They'll probably they need to redo his contract, though. I would disagree simply for the fact that I have Garrett Wilson. Now, the quarterback room, I think, is the worst room in football. Receiver room, maybe not, but it's down there. Yeah, I was just on this. I do think Whitehead can go. But, man, it's frustrating because, again, you like Brees Hall being positive. You like that this team, you know, it, it's just it's just crazy. And I think the thing that just the icing and the thing you like, this is so Jets was when you knew that Joe Flacco was going to have a good game today. And it's frustrating because this is a team that you do see, and this I think is the most frustrating parts, is you see a team that is clearly talented, that is busting at the seam, and it just feels like they have the talent, they have players that are just about to hit their stride. But the question is, do they have the right people to maximize this roster? And whether it's in the roster construction or the coaching staff. And if I was to put a poll out there for Jet fans, I think the majority would say no. They don't think. Yeah, I agree with you. You weren't here at the start of the show. That was what I led off with. You don't start with that comment. I think the only reason he did it was because sorry, I'm just making sure I'm not missing anything on Twitter right now for the Jets. I think the only reason was, and I got a good little tidbit from here too that I think is interesting from Brian Costello, was that this team just was in a situation where all of a sudden you're playing Joe Flacco. He's a guy that's been on this roster, know the guys, and you're just thinking to yourself, look, would the Jets have an extra win or two with Joe Flacco? I think you can make the case they could. And I do think Sal's showing some adjustments. Like it's come out, Brian Costello just reported, if Amari Cooper played tonight, guess what? Sauce is going to shadow him. And Sauce has been asking to shadow the number one all year. And you saw a lot last week with Terry McLaurin. I do think the Jets are adjusting. And the offense, again, not great, but I like some of the play design. Some of the play designs, the reverses to Xavier Gibson. I think you're seeing some development there. I'm not saying it's good, but I'm seeing at least something. But man, this is a team that you look, it's just the penalties. Calling that timeout in the first drive in the third quarter, it's just infuriating. It's one thing if this team was losing because of the lack of talent, but you look at a team tonight and you're just like, man, how can this team just not figure it out? And it's just frustrating because you're getting sick and tired of the excuses, and you're just like, we don't care anymore. Just figure it out. That's going to do it for this episode of Rich Sports Talk. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight. We'll have more Jets content, especially after the Patriot game, and of course during draft season and the off season, which will be coming up shortly. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe so you don't miss any of that content as well. Once again, I'm your host, Nolan Rich. If you're new to the channel, give us a like, give us a subscribe, share it to any Jet fan that you know about. And if you're joining us after the live stream, please put your questions about the Jets in there. And if you have ideas for videos you want me to talk about or topics, I'm willing to listen. I listen to the fans. We put polls up in the community. So give us a like and subscribe so you don't miss any of that great content. And of course, if you have any comments, put it below and I will get to them in the next video. But once again, the Jets, it's like that law. What's that law? I can't remember the term, but it's like whatever can go wrong will go wrong. Like that's the 2023 season in a nutshell. At least it's New Year's, and hopefully the Jets will have a better chapter in 2024. But until then, I'm your host, Nolan Rich, and this is Rich Sports Talk.